I wanted to share this thought with you because it's been heavy on my heart. I have some specific people in mind that I am praying for and that I have a great deal of concern for. I was talking to my daughter last week about the importance of being able to um, trust God during this season, and not just this COVID-19 season, but any season in your life that you find yourself not really having any control. Or being able to influence the situation. Sometimes, like now, we'll find ourselves kind of in a position where we just literally have to sit and wait, and prayerfully we're able to trust God through the process. But a lot of times, when our physical strengths and our abilities have the enemy uses against us. Actually, it's a good thing to have abilities, but a lot of times our human strengths and abilities, the enemy will use to deceive us into believing that we actually have power, or we in and of ourselves, or we actually have control over circumstances. And so when these abilities and these strengths that we have to control our own circumstances, so we think, are compromised or affected, it affects us in a lot of ways. One of the scriptures that really liberates me is Proverbs chapter 3. And I know we're familiar with this. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. Um, it says specifically to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. And a lot of times, when we try to figure it out, when we try to lean to our own understanding, it creates a a degree of anxiousness in our spirits, because there are just some things that we are too human to understand. It's beyond the scope of human reasoning. And so God beckons us and invites us to don't try to figure it out. Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge God, and he will um, do the hard work for us. And one of the part of this verse that really speaks to me, first of all, when he says to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, it takes intentionality to do that, because our human nature is pride for all by itself. It seeks self sufficiency. It seeks to figure it out on its own. It seeks to do it on its own. But God is telling us, don't worry about it. Don't try to figure it out, but to trust in him and lean not to your own understanding, but allow him to work these things out for us, right? Even when we don't see evidence of things being worked out, the fact that God is a trustworthy God, He He's proven that over and over again. That ought to be to give us a peace of mind all by itself, to not have to worry about it. It's basically like a parent-child relationship. With our children, there's a lot of struggle and strain and pain and hardship that we've shielded our children from, because the weight is on us, because we take care of it. We don't even bother our children with the struggles and the responsibilities that we have, because we want them to be children. And it's the same thing with God. We are children of God, and God is saying, I got this. I don't even want you to worry about this. This is God business. This is grown folk business, right? And so God is saying, don't worry about these things. I got it, right? And then he says, in all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. The idea of trying to manage our emotions and our mental health right now is major. I see people that are struggling with disciplining their thoughts and their emotions and truly trusting God with all of these unknowns. But actually, when we find ourselves in positions in life where we don't have any control, it is always an invitation from God Himself to surrender all to him, right? And if we continue to read, verse 7 says, do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and shun evil. But look at this. Verse 8 says, this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. The fact that God is instructing us to submit and surrender our emotions, our thoughts, the human nature that we have to try to control it and to try to fix it. He says that if you can manage to trust me and lean out into your own understanding, if you can manage to do that, if you can manage not to worry yourself in trying to figure it out or trying to understand everything, he says that will actually be physically beneficial for you. And so the opposite is true. If we do not trust God and if we continue to lean onto our own understanding, it can actually affect our health. That verse says this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So if I'm not trusting God, if I am continuing to lean to my own understanding, it will bring disease and dis-ease to my health and malnourishment or sickness to my bones. And so the fact that it's so important that in this season and in our lives, period, that we discipline ourselves, discipline our minds, and cast down all those imaginations that exalt themselves against the knowledge of God in order to come into this place of peace and serenity in the presence of God, even when God chooses not to change what's going on around us. I remember years ago when my mother was sick, I prayed and asked God, I said, Lord, I pray that you change these circumstances, but if you choose not, I pray that you change me, because the reality is God will not always choose to snatch us out of our circumstances that we're asking him to, but God promises to sustain us while we're in it, right? God is always with us. And one thing that I try to keep in my mindset is that God does not have to show up and show out. I just have to realize that he's already there. I don't need to see physical evidence to know that God is in control, because God is all powerful. And the simple fact that I'm able to have peace that surpasses all understanding, the simple fact that I'm able to relax and take refuge in his presence lets me know that he's there, even when it's chaos going on around me. So I want to encourage you to truly trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not unto your own understanding. And the reality is you don't trust anybody that you don't know. And so this is an invitation from God to get to know him so that you can trust him. I mean, that's how we are in human to human relationship. You don't trust people. You might have to deal with people, but you don't really trust people that you don't know. And so God is saying you need to get to know me so you can understand the magnitude of my power, the magnitude of my strength, and how I can cover and protect my children, even when things are going crazy around them, right? And so I want to encourage you, if you are struggling, to trust in the Lord and to not lean onto your own understanding, and to try to take refuge in your own strengths, whether that's your physical strength, your financial strength, your educational strength, your social strength. If you're tempted to try to fix things in those areas, and you're not able to trust God in this process, this is your turn. This is your time to commit yourself, rededicate yourself to learning who God is, who this God is that you actually proclaim and claim to be a child of. So you don't come to a point where you trust anybody that you don't truly know. And that might be a word for some of us, and the answer to why we struggle the way we do when we have to go through hard times. Do you really even know God? Because you can actually give God credit and praise for blessing you and still not trust God himself. You praise and bless God. Yes, God is the giver of all gifts, but you can still take more refuge in the gifts that God gives you than you do in God himself. So again, this is so important, because if we continue to lean to our own understanding and lack the trust that we need in God, it can make you physically sick. And it might not show up now, but eventually it will show up. So again, I just want to read this verse again. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 8. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. That's another word by itself. You cannot come into a place of peace with God wrapped up in your own sin, right? You actually have to shun evil and seek the protective custody of God in obedience. Because when you are disobedient to God, you literally snatch yourself out of the protective custody of God and you leave yourself out there. You're free game for the enemy, right? So he says to shun evil. And then verse 8 again, this will bring to your body, this will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. So please do what you need to do. Humble yourself. Recognize that just how much you need God in every aspect of your life. Be honest about where you are mentally and emotionally during this season so that the enemy won't catch you off guard and you will lose your mind and ultimately lose your soul. Your mental health is important. Your emotional health is important. Nobody is exempt from being attacked by the enemy, and nobody is exempt from being affected by hardships and the things that we're experiencing right now. So stay connected more so to God than anything else, but stay connected to spiritual minded brothers and sisters that can help encourage you in the ways of righteousness, because we need each other. We definitely need God. And this thing is just that serious. So bless the Lord.